reminder, the flag is in the back corner of the room. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will move on to the consensus agenda.
I move we approve 11/30/20 vouchers, 12/14/20 vouchers, payrolls 23, and other things that comes to $1,065,762.43. Also, the minutes of our meetings in the month of November.
Moved by Steve, second by Wes. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Patrons' comments. This is your time to speak up, or if anyone has an online question, we have someone who will monitor that for us. Yeah, you get a chance later.
Connie Lemler says good evening. Danny Klein, Madeline Young say hello. Jack Gahn is here. So.
They'll all let me know.
Yep. So that's all we have right now.
All right, we'll move to personnel.
All right. So I recommend the following personnel items. We'll break those up. The coaches at the end will do those all together. But first couple ones here. Just a quick explanation on those. The first one is a regular contract for Marsha Kaiser. Currently, she's under the non-certified staff. She's evaluated like a regular staff member. She does the exact same thing as our other intervention client or personnel. So it's one of those things where before she had been taken, her salary had been paid out of a grant. And we just got to a place right now where she's doing the same thing. We just feel like the equity of that is to make sure that she's compensated accordingly. So my recommendation is that we would make her contract a regular teacher contract.
I move we approve regular teacher contract for Marsha.
Moved by Steve, seconded by Ken. Any discussion?
Previously, had she been taking teacher's retirement or anything, or she continue to do that? I don't know how all that.
Yeah, so there has to be a certain amount of, I want to say it's 60 days in between when you retire and being able to take your next job. So I believe she is taking retirement, but she has not been paying into the retirement anymore. So we will not pay teacher retirement under this new contract. It'll simply be the amount and the type of contract that she'll receive. So she'll no longer get teacher retirement under this.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
The next item I want to recommend, regretfully, but I recommend the approval of Mason McIntyre's resignation.
Regretfully, I move we approve Mason McIntyre's resignation.
I don't want to say.
So,
All right, any discussion besides the fact that we're going to greatly miss Mr. McIntyre?
yeah,
Again, effective what date?
I believe we said June 30th, approximately. I don't know that we've given an exact date, but the end of his contract. Just for everybody's awareness, Mr. McIntyre has an awesome, I actually have something in here that I'll read, but just so we're not in suspense for the next few minutes. He has an awesome opportunity to become the executive director at Second Mile Mission, which is a mission organization that blesses little kiddos in I shouldn't say little, kids in the Dominican Republic. They've created schools. Rod Wildman was the founder of that organization. He actually taught at Triton School Corporation for some time. They are transitioning, him and his wife are transitioning out of that role. They were looking for an executive director to continue to help that organization continue to thrive and move on into the future. And Mason had an opportunity, I want to say, approximately a year ago. Am I taking your, it's approximately a year ago. If I get any of these details wrong, let me know. Approximately a year ago, but had another opportunity. It came around, a little bit different situation and scenario that allows him to stay in the States. and bless that organization. So as much as I regret that and hate that, it's going to be an awesome move for Second Mile Mission, and I also know it's a passion of Masons. So.
Just want to thank Mr. McIntyre. I think he started as an AD the year we won the boys state championship. It was 2007, 2008. And he's done an excellent job. We've improved our facilities. We've kept our sports teams competing, and he's just done an excellent job all the way around. And that's on top of all of his roles as administrator and et cetera. So thank you, Mason, for your service to Triton.
And he's worked very hard since August, as COVID has drastically changed everything, sports related. All right, if there's no other discussion, all in favor? Motion passes.
It's a little slower, right?
Yeah.
The next item, I would recommend the approval of Melissa LaSure Zach Whitaker as the volunteer wrestling coach. I'm going to go ahead and do all of these coaching positions together if you're okay with that. Melissa LaSure as the 5th grade girls basketball coach. Lana Hostrauser is 6th grade girls basketball coach. Chad Kennedy is 7th grade girls basketball volunteer coach. Becca Kennedy is the 7th grade girls basketball coach. Lindsay Shively as the 8th grade girls basketball coach, and Sam Stutzman, the 8th grade girls basketball volunteer coach.
I move we approve these coaching positions.
So moved by Steve, seconded by Wes. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. On to business.
All right, last year we discussed this a little bit. Obviously, COVID took over and never had the opportunity to do this, but I want to bring it before the board again. We understand that there may be things out of our control when it comes to this again, and we'll kind of keep everybody in the loop. But for now, I would recommend the approval of providing transportation to camps for the Nappanee Missionary Church to Ohio. They called and made that request last year. We've continued the conversation with Mrs. Laura Baker, our transportation director, and they would like us to offer that service if we are open to doing so. Of course, hinging on all of the things that we're still hoping go away by the time June comes.
Jeremy, can you explain to us how the expenses will be covered?
So they will pay for both the driver and the mileage on that. So it will be, other than wear and tear on the buses, it will be, the trip will be covered. So it will not cost us anything. Our drivers will be paid for, our mileage will be paid for, our gas, so on. Laura, do you have anything else to add to that?
They pay for the hotel, they basically pay for everything. We just, as explained in there, there's 4 high school drivers and 2 middle school drivers with 2 weeks set up next to each other. I do have drivers for those 2 weeks already, so I mean, it's pretty well ready to go, but we just provide the drivers.
So all expense paid for our drivers, including actual pay.
I move we approve this agreement.
I'll second.
Moved by Steve, seconded by Kevin. Any other discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
Next item on the agenda, I would recommend the approval of 2 2022 Thomas C2 66 passenger buses. That, of course, is in our bus replacement plan, and so we're just following through with that at this time.
So moved. Second.
Then moved by Kevin, seconded by Steve. Any other discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
As is customary, we recommend the approval of a trustee to the board or the Bourbon Public Library, and so I would recommend the approval of the reappointment of Jay Grossman to that position for the Bourbon Public Library.
Then moved by Wes, seconded by Ken. Any other discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
Next item, I recommend the approval of lawnmower purchase. I know Brian has tested 4 or 5 lawnmowers, if not 5 or 6. So when it was all said and done, the price the cut, what we feel is the maintenance and all the things that need to go into that. He chose the Toro, $6,000. So I recommend that we approve that.
Been moved by Steve, seconded by Ken. Any other discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
The next item, I recommend the first reading of the corporation policy for Title IX. Terry Barnhart, Laura Baker, and I meet with a gentleman by the name of Ryan Snoddy from Neola, and he walks us through policies that we are getting ready to adopt. We work through what that means for the corporation. This policy for Title IX is a big deal. It's talking about sexual harassment. So if there's any sexual harassment that would happen on school campus, within our walls, with our school officials, those type of things, is we actually have to name a Title IX coordinator. So as we continue to work through this, we will make that information available on our website, just as is expected. But this is the first reading of that policy. When that is adopted, we will share those names and that information as well.
Been moved by Steve, seconded by Kevin. Any other discussion?
Yeah, can we get the short version next time?
There is no short version.
The Title IX? Yeah, 21 pages, yep.
There
Yep.
is no cliff notes.
And to that point, Mr. Stichter, I think it's important to say that always before there was a process in which, due process in which you would take a staff member through and or a victim and that type of thing. And what that policy actually does is really take you step by step of what those procedures, just to make sure that you're not looking onto those as, what the word that's in there a lot is indifferent. We're not allowed to look at sexual harassment as indifferent. We actually have to look into those allegations and make sure that we're doing our due diligence.
I just want to say thanks and kudos to those who actually sat down and worked through that. That took some time and effort. So thank you.
All right. If there's no other discussion. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. On to the superintendent's report.
All right, as is typical, we usually work through our core values. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with tradition on that. Continuous improvement. I want to thank Mason McIntyre for his 14 years of dedicated service. One of his main goals when he started was to improve our athletic facilities. There's no doubt that our facilities have indeed improved and have become some of the nicest 1A facilities in the state. Much to his passion and his teamwork with administration, we can recognize these accomplishments easily. These improvements include, but are not limited to, the Ernie Watkins Pavilion, the Triton Activity Center, baseball and softball dugouts, new high school football and baseball press boxes, new tennis courts, gym floors, and many other small improvements that many have not seen, such as the new media room, the trainer's room, the laundry room, and a room designated for visiting officials, much of which was done by Mason alone. So I personally just want to thank Mason for his years of service, for your leadership, and most importantly, your friendship. Thank you. Shared leadership. I want to thank Mr. Gephardt for monitoring our SCREF liability needs. Today's tour with the inspector went very well, and we were able to correct nearly all of the recommendations from his last visit. A couple of the claims that were still outstanding have been acted upon. The items have been ordered and will be installed as soon as they come in. The inspector was very complimentary of our behind-the-scenes areas, and this too can be attributed to Mr. Gephardt and Mrs. Nancy Miller for making these areas a priority. We might have the cleanest boiler room in the state. So thank you, Mrs. Miller. Social responsibility. This time of year can be difficult for families, especially in the middle of the situation that we currently find ourselves in. I want to thank the Triton Elementary and Triton Junior Senior High School for doing their best to meet the needs that they're aware of. Nearly 20 gift baskets will be sent to families on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. They've raised money for such organizations as Shop with a Cop, that are taking place right now. Staff have adopted families. Blessings and a backpack donations and many other examples of social responsibility have and will continue to be shown in the coming weeks. Accountability, Triton Junior Senior High School is excited to announce Julie Groves, Connor Large, Lauren Snyder, and Sarah Weber as this year's nominees for members of the Rising Stars of Indiana class of 2022. These students must be current juniors and show excellence in their academic careers. And congratulations to those students. Congratulations to the Lady Trojan golfers under the direction of Coach Shorey for this outstanding honor. Miss Maddie Richardson earned 2020 IHSGCA Girls Golf Association or Academic All-State Team. Teammates Miss Haley Rensberger and Miss Lily Hubert earned 2020 All-State Academic Honorable Mention honors. And congratulations to these athletes and just high quality, high character young ladies. I also want to congratulate, just out today, Jocelyn Faulkner for achieving 1A Girls 2020 All-State Team Honorable Mention. She is one of 6 freshmen to be named to either the All-State team or the Honorable Mention team, so congratulations to her. Evidence-based decision-making. Triton Elementary staff just finished up the middle of the year testing. These assessments are done to see how much students have progressed and continue to give the prescribed interventions needed in order to reach their maximum potential. I would be remiss if I did not continue to thank Nurse Newman and Nurse Mulligan and our substitutes for their continued dedication and endurance as we continue to try our best to communicate and contact trace when needed. This has been a tremendous undertaking, and I am pleased with our unwavering commitment to do what we have been asked to do for the safety of Triton scholars. These are not popular phone calls and ones that we hope can come to an end in the very near future, but we thank you for your understanding and commitment to keeping our staff, student body, and community as safe as possible during these times. And last but not least, alignment. One of our common goals for our youngest students, or our common goals as a corporation, and especially our youngest students, is to live out Trojan Pride, the Trojan way. Many of you were able to see on News Center 16 this week that they did a special on the preschoolers last Friday. And today they were at it again. So preschoolers took a walk over to the Triton Drive, across Triton Drive to Triton Junior Senior High School with some treats to thank our junior senior high staff for all of their hard work. So our 4-year-olds in the corporation, just learning what it looks like to think of others over self, and no better time to obviously start living that out than at that young of age. So just super proud of them, super proud of Mrs. Lysick for implementing that with those preschoolers. Allison Stewart is also part of that, Mrs. Allison Stewart. So just super proud of them and our students. We're so blessed with great staff and great students.
Patrons' comments. Now's your time to ask any questions that you have. Don't be shy. No questions? Yeah, go ahead, Orion.
I'll use this. I'm on it. Jeremy pretty much said it pretty well, everything I was going to say about Mason, but I've got to know him over the past, 12 years. And it's been a pleasure to work with him, and he's an outstanding character, and I wish him nothing but the best, and hope to see him at games where he can actually watch a game and not have to man the game. So on behalf of everybody I know that works with me, Kenny, Andy, Kaden, Margot, and I know Marcel helps us, and Mindy, just want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts and everything you've done. It's much appreciated.
No questions? Any questions on the agenda of what we've discussed tonight? Now's your chance to ask.
I think you get extra credit if you say something.
Last meeting, we had tons of questions, good questions. No one's got a question? Don't be shy.
We wouldn't have had questions at your age either.
Yeah, okay.
We do have one. Will the Chromebooks be disinfected individually after the IT work on them over break? And the answer is yes. We will do our best to make sure those are scrubbed down. So.
All right, if there's no questions, last call. Questions? All right, we'll move on to the building reports. Trustee?
Well, many of what I would consider normal activities have been instead of our all-school Christmas sing on the last day of school, we've been kind of playing special request music in the mornings and afternoons to kind of get people in the merriment of the holiday. With the help of who is our resident disc jockey, I think most of the staff and students are enjoying him, her. And Miss Aldifer has worked with grades 2 and 5 to produce, along with Orion Lumber, a virtual Christmas music program, which will be shared later this week. Mr. Riffle mentioned a few of the things in the spirit of giving and so forth that is going on. Third grade sponsoring a food drive in lieu of exchanging gifts. The preschool staff, as he mentioned, and students are participating in the 12 days of giving, showing their appreciation for other staff. Blessings in a Backpack will be handing out toys and gifts to each of their students in the building, and staff will be helping with the wrapping of those gifts and distributing those. So lots of other things that are going on, but those are a few things to highlight. Our Digital Learning Practice Day on November 19th went well with nearly 80 students. We had 80% of our students fully participating by completing all or almost all of the assignments. We're still working on how to increase that number in the future through various means. We still have 10 virtual learners, although a number of students are temporarily on quarantine and working from home. Our middle of year testing is nearly complete for virtual and in-person students. Many people and students have a part, every student has a part in this kindergarten through 6th grade data collection process, which includes individual assessments in DIBELS, text reading and comprehension, group administered assessments such as DAYS and Scholastic Reading Inventory, as well as dyslexia screening in grades K through 2. So this Wednesday and Thursday, staff will meet throughout the day to review and analyze this important data. Next semester, we're going to be welcoming 2 student teachers, Abigail Washburn from Grace, who will be with Samantha Phoenix in 2nd grade, and then later in the semester with Natalie Branda in special education, and also Kimberly Minks, who will be teaching art with Mrs. McFarland. As Mr. Riffle already did, I just want to thank our many faithful substitute teachers who have helped us hold down the fort for the past month, especially while we've been continuing with our middle of year assessments. And we need lots of people on campus during those days. So also a big kudos to our teachers for doing more than they ever thought they could, and for showing a willingness to adapt and change and roll with the punches. Every day we have our children in the building is a gift, and we appreciate it. Any questions?
How are we testing those 10 virtual students? How do we do that?
So we have asked them, we told them in the very beginning that they would be asked to come in during that time and do one-on-one testing. So they are aware of that. So reaching out and making individual appointments through a phone call. And then they usually come in. Mrs. Blinsky has done a lot of that testing. Either at the admin building, mostly at the admin building. We've had a few students that we've had to test at the elementary, but parents have been very good about bringing them in. They're exposed to only like one other person. We do that in the office area or at the admin building.
All right, just a few updates from the high school. When we came back from Thanksgiving break, we were able to pick up with our I-STEP testing for our juniors and our seniors. Luckily, we got through that. So we tried to do it before break, and that obviously didn't happen. So we were fortunate to get that in after Thanksgiving break. This week, we have final exams. Wednesday's going to start that, so we have them on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So you know, we're just going to work through that, and we're going to hope for the best, and we'll see how that goes. Rising Stars of Indiana. Mr. Riffle talked about that, so I won't dive into that, but congratulations to the students that were recognized for the Rising Stars of Indiana Awards. And then Mr. Riffle also talked about the Christmas basket. So I just want to thank a couple of our teachers that helped us put those together, Ginny Mevis, Ashley Faulkner, and also Sarah Arvison. So we're going to take some time later this week, and we're going to take those baskets. I think we have 19 baskets that we're going to put together and deliver to families that we feel could use that this season. The last thing I want to share with you guys is a survey we put out to our staff. So that's the results of the survey that I gave you there. Out of 28 teachers, we had 25 teachers respond to that. So I felt like we got some pretty good feedback. First item there is method of instruction. Just was curious to hear from teachers what they were using to get that information out to students when we are digital. And you can kind of go through. I went ahead and penciled in. You can see the percentages, but I added how many teachers fell in which category. So you can see there we had 12 teachers that recorded their lessons, which was kind of what we originally just said we wanted teachers to do. And those teachers recorded their lesson, and those were available to students either later that day or the following morning. But we also had some teachers that did that step and then also took the next step of providing Google Meets throughout the week just to kind of check in with their kids, give the students an opportunity to see the teacher's face, have some interaction, ask questions. And then we also had a few teachers that even took it to the next level and started offering some live classes, which Mr. Young was actually one of those teachers, and he was really interested in wanting to do that. And I think we saw some success with that, maybe some more engagement out of those kids. So we're going to talk about if we would happen to find ourselves in that situation again, maybe how we can offer more classes in a live situation. So, but even for those students that couldn't attend live, we were able to record those and make those available for our students later on. So. Next item in there in the survey talked about participation and engagement. I was just kind of curious from a teacher's perspective, how much did we see that participation and engagement drop during that about a two and a half week period before Thanksgiving? So you can kind of see there what our teachers felt. There were a couple teachers that didn't feel like there was any change, but they were probably in the minority. Majority of the teachers felt like there was a moderate decrease in that participation and engagement from our kids, which I think we kind of expected to see anyway. And then there's a handful of teachers that also felt like that was a considerable amount. So, moving on to the next item, we talked, I'm very similar, but this is more about work completion, so we took it to the next step, talking about kids that are actually completing their work. Again, you can see the breakdown there, whether it was no change, moderate change, or a considerable amount of change. And we definitely saw not just the engagement, but also that work completion drop during that period of time. Again, I think we expected that, but I think it's good to kind of see where the teachers fall there and what their opinions are on that. And then just the overall experience, how we thought that went. Was it successful? Was it somewhat successful, or did we think it wasn't successful at all? So you can kind of see where teachers fell there. Majority of them felt like it was somewhat successful. I think when we see that drop off in engagement, we see the drop off in work completion, I think it's hard to say that it was a success, because I don't think that's what we're okay with. But I think there were a lot of things that were really good that came out of it. I think our teachers have really prepared. They put a lot of work into it. I think majority of our students are working hard and taking the time. So I think there was some success during that time period, but I also think there's some things we can do to improve it. So that takes us to the last page. So after each of these, we just kind of asked the teachers, what feedback they could give. What are the things that worked, what didn't work, and what can we start to look at. So these are just some of the key takeaways that I got from that survey. One is offer more Google Meets or live instruction to increase that engagement. So I think that's something we've got to look at. And we'll have to talk about what that schedule looks like during the day. That way kids, we're not offering Google Meets at the same time and they're conflicting for kids. But how can we offer more interaction between that teacher and our students? Second item there, consider instruction and video time length. And then just, it's not an expectation necessarily that we assign something every day. Now, I think we need to engage with kids every day, but I don't want teachers to feel like you have to give an hour's worth of homework every day to students. I think some of our kids felt overwhelmed. I think when they have a 45-minute video to watch every day for every class, that can become a struggle for our kids. So we've just got to revisit that idea and what is manageable for our kids to accomplish on a day like a day when they're digital learning. Communication is key, and that's something that we've talked about all along. I think looking at last year, that's the number one thing that we needed to improve on, is how can we better communicate. And I think our teachers even pointed it out in the survey, is they started contacting students and parents, and they started to see homework come in. They started to see kids engage more once they knew somebody was watching them. So we've just got to continue doing those things and find the creative ways to get a hold of parents. And I think offering that live instruction to kids, that's another piece of that communication that's very important. So we'll continue to work on that. And then just look at, we need to continue to look at ways to hold students more accountable for completing their work. So I know that's a concern of the teachers, and I think it's something we got to continue to talk about. What can we do on our end to encourage students to do their work, get it turned in on time, and demonstrate learning? So those are the things that we gathered from our staff just on, like I said, that 2.5 weeks before break, how we thought the digital learning experience went. Some good things and some definite things we can improve on as well. So any questions on those items? I have not. We just did it this weekend, so teachers shared it. I asked them to do it before this morning so we can compile everything for you guys, and then, yeah, we can definitely share this out. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Okay, we have more questions?
A couple things that have been asked since we've been discussing. The first thing is, this hasn't been asked, but I think it's on our students' mind. I think it's on our community's mind, of just quarantine students. How do we continue to monitor some of the things that are happening with the CDC and so on? So I just wanted just a quick overview of this afternoon. We quarantined quite a few students. And I just want to let our community know that we continue to monitor that. We continue to make sure that we're putting things in place to make sure that kids are safe. And I know some, depending on where you're at on that line of continuum of this is real or this isn't real and so on, just understand the school, once again, doesn't have the option of doing nothing. So what we need to make sure we continue to do is make sure that we are, I don't want to say blameless, but in the end, we're following the directions and the expectations of the health departments that continue to invest in us as schools. But I just want to let you know, we continue to monitor those. We continue to document those cases as it relates to how many students we have going out, how many students we have coming back in. And I will just tell you, it's a monumental task. On top of trying to educate kids. So I just want to once again give kudos to our office staffs who are bearing a lot of that burden. They're the ones that are having to make some of those difficult phone calls to people who don't agree or do agree. But I want to say overall, people have been very receptive and understanding to what's been happening. So I just want to, sometimes that's a little bit of the pink elephant in the room. We'll continue to monitor. Obviously, staff numbers is really, really important. Student numbers is really, really important. And understanding that quarantine can get out of hand. But the bottom line is, a lot of times we're sending kids that are healthy home, right? And it's very few that are actually sick. So we continue to monitor that. I did see that Mrs. Connie Lemler asked, what if any capital improvements are on the horizon? I think it's an important time to say that obviously there's some of those things, those smaller items that we continue to etch away at. But I think one of the bigger capital improvements are, as we just got done filling out our operations fund and getting our capital project fund complete for this year, a lot of those are just small items, making sure that we're kind of keeping up to date, making sure we're replacing sidewalks and those little items that we can take care of a little bit at a time. But what I would say, vision-wise, our next project would likely be something that I've talked to the board about, something I've said multiple times to our community, is the need for secure entrances at both the elementary and the high school. Just making sure that when somebody walks into the elementary building or the high school building, that they can't just have free reign to the entire hallway. Anybody that builds a school now, make sure that they have those things in place. Obviously, our buildings are not old by any means, but 1991 and 1968, they weren't thinking of a lot of those things back then. So as we move closer to likely a bond in 2022, likely that is what's going to be on the agenda and what will be presented to our community as we continue to try to keep that tax neutral. So I appreciate that question. I hope that answered that. Obviously, a lot of small things, just making sure upkeep and those type of things. But as we look closer to maybe a bond, that's something that is definitely in our future coming down the pike. So we continue to look at, as I mentioned today, we met with S-Craft. We continue to look at our bleachers. We continue to look at those liability areas. But we are knocking those off a little bit at a time. One of those was the laundry room that was right in the middle of the boys' locker room. That was huge to make sure that that was moved out of the way. A nice space for our for Eric to meet with our kids and make sure that they're keeping them healthy. That's been greatly improved in the last year and a half. Obviously, the activity center was a great addition. So we continue to look for those things to make sure that we're safe in all areas. So I appreciate that question, and maybe just a little bit of what is to come in that area. So
Anything else?
I believe that's all.
No other line online ones? Last chance, kids. Anybody have a question? There's never a stupid question. No? All right, if not, we'll move to adjourn at 7:37.